Hey, Marvel Maniacs, welcome to another exciting episode of Guardians of the MCU. This is episode number 208. We are recording this on December 13th, 2021. Just a reminder, Guardians of the MCU is part of the Random Chatter Network. Please do check us out at randomchatter.com for information on all of our shows, membership through Patreon, access to the Escape Hatch Discord channel, and show merchandise from TeePublic. I'm Tim. Joining me tonight on this exclusive live-streamed video edition of Guardians of the MCU.
Fancy.
We have Sheba, our regular co-hostess. Hi, Sheba.
Hello. How's it going, Tim?
Pretty good. Pretty good. And we have a highly irregular guest joining us.
But with enough
evening.
medication, I could become regular.
Yep.
Somewhat.
And lots of fiber,
true.
probably.
True.
Yeah. That's Eric. Hi, Eric.
I'm
How are you
doing great,
tonight?
Tim. I got to tell you, that intro kind of makes me feel like the Random Chatter and Force Chatter intros are not salesman-y enough. Like we've been.
We like to punch it up here.
Yeah. We need to.
Yeah.
We need to take a little bit of that over on the other shows, I think. So how are you doing? I am excited to be here. I love Marvel. I love Star Wars 2 when Star Wars happens, which hasn't really been much recently. So I've been living in the world of Marvel, and yet I don't podcast for Marvel. So this I am very excited about. I am very thrilled to be here tonight.
Awesome. Hey, we are very happy to have you, especially because John is a punk.
Yeah.
And has chosen to abandon us for several weeks in favor of his daughter. I don't quite understand the logic, but it's okay. And actually, Eric is not only joining us on the show. He is actually, I can walk down the hall and punch him in the face. That is how close he is to Guardians of the MCU right now.
I love that you said punch him in the face and not like tap him on the shoulder or something.
30,000 less
violent.
violent options you had there. I could walk down the hallway and hand him a drink or something. No. Punch him in the face. That's.
I was like, yeah, he's got way. Punch him in the. I hope you're safe there. Eric went twice if you need help.
Is that clear? Hold on. Yeah, I don't want it to be too subtle there.
We are pretty much the equivalent of Netflix to the Netflix shows to the MCU. This is that version of Random Chatter here.
By the way, we have a chat room here too. So yeah,
we do. Yes.
I guess I don't need to post the link in Discord. Tim already got it. Awesome.
I did. Yeah. So hello to the folks in our YouTube chat room. For listeners of Guardians of the MCU, first of all, this video will be archived there. So if you go to randomchatter.com/YouTube, you'll be able to see this video. If you decide, hey, I want to watch and listen to the video of the same podcast that I just listened to, you can do that. Folks might be asking if we're going to be doing this regularly. Probably not.
Fiber, Tim. More
Eric
fiber.
Is kind of.
You could be doing this regularly.
I know. Eric is kind of the central hub of our live streaming technology and et cetera, for the Random Chatter Network, which is why you can find like a lot of our other shows, the Random Chatter Show, Force Chatter, Movie Chatter, basically anything that Eric is on, miraculously, ends up getting live streamed over
Tim,
on YouTube.
I have a secret.
Guardians is not.
I have a secret for you.
What's your secret?
You could make this happen.
I know I
could teach you. I could be your Yoda.
I don't need to complicate my life any further.
I could be your Grogu.
Anyway.
Technology guru.
To your frog eggs. I don't know. I could be an analogy that works for your lack of knowledge about how to do this.
Other than the analogies that you already tried to use. Let's see here. So a quick reminder before we do continue on, please do check out MCU TV. That has been up and running again. Sheba and John have been covering all the latest episodes of Hawkeye. So do check that out. And we have the last 2 episodes of Hawkeye coming up Really excited about what we're going to see this Wednesday. I mean, we're basically in the third act. It's 6 episodes, so we're in the third act. So these last 2 episodes are going to be big, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So,
one last announcement.
So, folks, just
a quick plug for one of our other shows. I and Lou and your wife Robin do a show called Movie Chatter, and we are going to be covering Venom: Let There Be Carnage very shortly. In fact, we're recording it tomorrow night.
Fun movie.
It will be a fun movie to discuss.
I believe that review will be very different from the review that Sheba and I gave of it, because we actually like the movie.
Not so much everybody else.
I mean,
but my wife will be carrying that flag at.
You should be prepared to provide her Tylenol.
Not spoiling
afterwards.
Anything or giving anything away.
Now we will be plugging the GMCU, of course, because the one thing that we want to make sure that we continue to do on the network is to review things both with integrity and be honest about them, but also be respectful of other opinions and to provide as much diversity of opinion and perspective as we can. So, though I'm going to be upfront about the fact that I do not like it. We're going to be plugging you guys so that people know to go.
The only reason I enjoyed it better than the first one was because it had so little expectations. I was like, it's gonna be a comedy, and I enjoyed it as a comedy.
Yeah, I can see that.
It was a different going it with it. If I went in thinking it was gonna be a horror movie again, I was gonna be super disappointed. So I didn't do that. It's like, not today. You got me once. Not gonna fall for it a second time.
All right, so we have a few things to get to tonight. So with that, on to our news. First up, those of you who are watching us right now, you have a very immediate choice you can make. You can continue watching us, or you can go watch the No Way Home red carpet event. You won't actually get to see the movie, but you'll get to see people walking on a red carpet and interviewed and stuff, which is fun. I do enjoy those. I will probably catch like a recap of it like later tonight. Don't leave our live stream. I mean, there's a few. We have Fatmatic, we have David, we have Joe. Thank you guys for being here and joining us, or maybe even
be
others.
No warning about this live stream.
Yeah. This was like a very short notice type of thing. So you can catch recaps of it later, and we're bound to talk about it later. So we did get some She-Hulk news a few days ago, and so this is it seems that She-Hulk, it's shaping out to be this is the Disney Plus series, is shaping out to be kind of true to the sensational She-Hulk comic book run, in which She-Hulk, kind of similar to Deadpool, would fairly regularly break the fourth wall. She was very self-aware of her characterization in the comic. And kind of as part of this whole thing, Tatiana Maslany, who is playing She-Hulk, has mentioned that she's actually going to be singing a couple of songs.
Oh, cool.
Within the show. Now, this is not going to be She-Hulk the musical. Don't be worried about that. And I don't even expect that these are going to be the full versions of these songs. There's probably like a minute or so. But the two songs that are apparently going to be sung are It's Not Easy Being Green, made famous by Kermit the Frog, of course.
Another.
Yes.
Another
And
famous green.
And Fever. So what do you guys think about this? Is the first, I believe, singing in any MCU thing.
So is this going to be like in the movie Free Guy, where the one actress is walking down the street, just like just kind of like singing to herself, or is this going to be like she's performing the song?
Or is this going to be like karaoke,
like
in Shang-Chi?
I would be okay with that.
I don't know. I'm guessing she's going to be belting it out. I don't think it's going to be just kind of some humming along or anything. I think she's going to belt this right out, because she did say in this interview that she's going to be singing.
Have we heard her sing before? Did she sing in Orphan Black?
I don't know. I never watched Orphan Black. I'm not sure.
I'm not actually that far into it. I need to finish it. I mean, listen, there are a lot of people in Hollywood who, through their experiences in Hollywood, end up they have other musical talents. They play an instrument, they sing, things like that. So I'm going to go with the assumption that she's a good singer. Otherwise, they wouldn't have her do it. So that's fine. I just don't like musicals all that much. So if the number fits, if she's on stage, or like you said, Shiva, if she's doing karaoke, that sort of thing, if the context fits, it's okay. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how they're going to make it work. I'm sure it's going to be fine because Marvel usually ends up doing everything, pretty well. I'm sure it'll work out. I don't know the idea of what I thought She-Hulk was going to be. It's kind of
changing,
not fitting into that musical wise. And I love musicals. I love watching musicals, but if it doesn't make sense, it gets a little confused. Like I know they have musical shows or musical episodes sometimes on certain shows. So are they going to do that kind of thing? Or are they just going to be like, here's the musical episode we're doing, and it's just, that's all it is? Like, is it that like, she hit her head and she's like kind of, in a daze and she's imagining everything as a musical? Is it going to be like that kind of a scenario? Or like something kind of different?
Fever is an older song that's more of kind of a lounge, the old crooner era style song. So I could see like if it's in a lounge singing sort of environment or something, that would make sense. It's Not Easy Being Green, like if she's depressed and sitting on a rooftop and singing it to herself or something, I could maybe kind of see that.
Right.
I can't see like a full bore production with like the extras dancing around behind her swinging off of lampposts and stuff. But I could maybe see some context for this making sense.
I will say keep in mind. So I mean, again, first of all, I don't expect this is going to be She-Hulk the musical.
No.
Breaking out into song a couple of times really hits the mark with certainly Sensational She-Hulk as it was written, along with a couple of other things that She-Hulk has been written into. And she's been written very, very seriously. She's also tends to be written very lightheartedly. She is just kind of like a more comedic, kind of funny type of thing. So I'm expecting this series to be a little bit more lighthearted. But again, also remember, Marvel balances things really well. They will tend to balance comedy with things that are much more grounded. And again, everybody knows my opinion on this. Ant-Man tipped those scales too much for me.
You and the Ant-Man hate.
One
of my favorite MCU movies.
They went too comedic with it. I do want to give a nod to Joe's comment in the chat here that mentioning that maybe she will be in Rogers the Musical.
Yeah.
Hey, you never know.
Yeah.
You never know how that's going to work out.
Yeah. And it's funny because Haley Steinfeld first started off as a singer, so maybe they'll have Kate Bishop show up and sing some songs too.
She's actually a good singer.
Because she can sing really well.
She's surprisingly
She's
good.
a very good singer.
And a very good actress too.
I forgot. I was listening to someone had posted a video and was singing along to like some song of hers, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot she sings. It was like she was in Pitch Perfect also.
Yeah. And she did a couple of songs in Dickinson too. I don't remember if they were like on the soundtrack or credits or something. I don't remember if they were in episodes, but
yeah. I remember listening to her songs on the radio and being like, hey, I like this song. Just kind of, you forget about it after a while and you're like, oh right, yeah, she was a singer first and now she moved into acting. But yeah, it would be interesting to see if they, make use of her skills at some point as well. Maybe she shows up or pops in there.
Yeah. It's being said that Moon Knight may be the most dark and violent Disney Plus MCU series. So
no music there.
Very likely to not have any music. I do not expect Mark Spector to break out in song.
You could have a very dark, like goth or metal based musical. I mean, if they really wanted to do it, I guess they could do it. I don't think they will, but.
So what do you guys think about this? And how dark can we go with Disney Plus? And we'll kind of assume that things remain as they are with no adult portal or anything like that. It's Disney Plus as it is. What do you guys think? And how dark can they go with it?
I feel like they might go, I don't know, like I said when we were talking about Venom, they said that it was going to be a horror movie, and then you were like, this is not even close to a horror movie. Like it's not scary at all. So are they going to pull one of those kind of things? Like, oh yeah, it's scary, but it's just a little scary, and not because they're not going to push it to like a rated R territory. At least I don't.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's not going into Netflix Punisher area.
Right. So like, how dark and violent can it really be? I think it'll just be. It might imply being a little violent and dark, but I don't think they won't show anything.
Right.
So I don't think it's gonna go into that.
So I'm looking at I just did a quick Google search on what's the darkest movie on Disney Plus right now. And there's not really a lot of good examples here. The Black Hole from 1979 and stuff like that. But if you look at the Star Wars stuff, for little kids, the end of episode 3 was kind of intense with Anakin becoming immolated and having limbs chopped off. There was a lot of stuff in Rise of Skywalker that was terrifying. But then when you get past the writing of the plot, there were some scenes that were pretty visually scary too. That went totally over Tim's head, me commenting on how the writing was so bad as to be terrifying, but it's okay. I forgive you, Tim. But seriously though, like the Emperor being like decrepit and like parts of his fingers had come off and it was just the bones left. And so I can see some stuff. So you can do a lot with like the creepy factor and the haunting, we'll say, the haunting factor of things. And then the violence itself has to be a little more understated. You know, when people get punched or stabbed or whatever, you're probably not going to see blood. Right. And there'll be a lot of like shadows and things like that. I think they can...
a lot of implied types of things.
I think that they're able to pull it off. Plus, I mean, they are a streaming network. I don't remember. Does Disney Plus have parental controls? Okay.
No.
I mean, unless you're in like one of the countries that don't have Hulu, then you have that Star option, which has parental controls.
I don't know. I think, I mean, they can still get away with more, I imagine, in the movies, but then the movies all end up on Disney Plus too. So
yeah,
I think they'll be okay. I don't mind them going darker with it. I mean, I'm a big proponent of, if you are a parent your kids, and now you're not going to be able to do it perfectly. Your kids are going to be able 100%. To get around you, and there's going to be a little a gap there that that's part of life too. But I don't know. I'm okay with this going dark.
Yeah,
and I also want things to be true to character, and I mean, again, folks know I'm a huge Moon Knight fan, and Moon Knight has gone through some different phases, both as a character and as a comic, and at times has been a little more violent and a little less violent. And I want them to be, fairly true to that character, and I don't think that they have to go overboard with it. I think that some of the mystical associations with the character can lend themselves to things. I think some of the mental health issues with the character can lend themselves to things that, he does get darker. He does get a little bit violent, even from that little teaser that we got on Disney Plus Day. If you guys remember Disney Plus Day.
Not for the Star Wars.
That flash in the pan. There was a lot of implied violence, like that one shot down that kind of long room, and we saw him like hunched over. We saw his back, and it looked like he was just beating the snot out of somebody in front of him, but we couldn't see who it was, and we didn't actually see the violence directly,
Sorry, I was typing in the chat room. I think that they're going to be okay. I think there's a difference between scary and traumatic. And I think, even kids, they like to be scared. It's exciting. It gets their adrenaline going. It's like, it's the whole nature of being on a roller coaster to some extent.
I mean, when I was a kid, we used to watch like the Goosebumps,
Right.
That kind of thing, or Are You Afraid of the Dark kind of shows. So they were creepy. Just the beginning of those, the intro of those were creepy. We still watch them, and I'm pretty sure my parents were like, yeah, it's on
Yeah.
the kids' channel, so it's fine. So,
And I grew up watching Twilight
That
Zone, which
explains
is
so
way
much.
different.
But I think there is a difference between what you can imply and we'll say the situational. I don't want to use the word horror, but what makes something scary from a situational point of view, and what makes something scary from an observational point of view. And I think that if you are watching, you've seen the recent Batman trailer, right? The one that just came out, or the one prior to it, where Batman goes up and just beats this guy, knocks him down to the ground. And when he's down on the ground, then he jumps down on him, starts wailing on him again. You're not going to see that. Like, to a kid, you don't watch a hero do that. Okay.
Yeah.
So even the lack of blood and stuff like that, the presentation of that level of just rage infested violence, we're not going to see that. But because that is, something where you're observing an actual violent act that is not in the defense of someone, and it's not merely implied. We will see some violence, but I don't think it's going to be anything more than we've already seen in the MCU. I think it's really going to be the more haunting aspect of it, the psychological intensity, and to some extent the mental health issue. I think the mental health issue is really going to be what makes or breaks this series, because so many people, like, we have such an attunement now to mental health issues and a desire to see them to be taken seriously, even though there's still a large part of the population that doesn't. So we are defensive about that. And so we want it to be done right. And they're going to be so under the microscope about the mental health issues. I don't see the violence thing coming up.
Yeah.
You may be right. Let's see. Moving on to Black Panther 2. So this is something, there's little rumor, there's little speculation. Some of this is straight up news. So I kind of figured I would put this into the news thing instead of holding it for rumor and speculation, because it is more than that. So a lot of this revolves around Letitia Wright. And folks know, I love Letitia Wright. I love the character of Shuri. I think they're fantastic. Now, earlier on in the pandemic, when the vaccines were first coming out, she was vocal on social media about basically encouraging people to be cautious with the vaccines, and not just simply like basically blind following the blind kind of thing. She wasn't speaking out against vaccines. She wasn't speaking out as like straightforward as an anti-vaxxer. But she has been labeled as such because of the stuff that she put out, which I think is kind of unfair. Whether she is or is not, I don't really know. I think the folks closer to her would know that. We also do know, so another factual thing is that the production of Black Panther 2 has been put on hold for a while because of an injury that she sustained earlier in the production, which I think was actually an aggravation of an injury from a prior film that she had. I heard something about that. But basically, this injury got to be too much. And so they paused production because so much of the movie centers on her character. Production is apparently scheduled to be resuming in January or February, from what we're hearing. Now, from that, here's where we're getting into a little bit of the rumor mill. So I'm qualifying it with that the stuff that we're hearing now is not actual news. These are, quote, insider reports and that kind of stuff. So there are some rumors that she may not be returning to the MCU because of an unwillingness to get vaccinated. Now, I will note here that she has not disclosed whether she is or is not vaccinated. But again, there seems to be some extrapolation here of people assuming that she is against the vaccine. Now, apparently, so all Hollywood productions now have vaccine mandates for those productions. apparently, so one of the sources I read here said that Black Panther 2 started production prior to that requirement. So they kind of are like grandfathered in or whatever. I don't know if that's accurate or not. So she might be able to get around it that way if she is not vaccinated. But the other side of this is that I don't think she can come into the US if she's not vaccinated. And she's presently back home in the UK while she's recuperating from her injury.
Right.
So there's some thoughts that maybe she may not even come back to finish up the movie, which means that they're going to have to reshoot some things and rewrite the ending of the movie. I don't know. What do you guys think about this chaos?
I feel so bad for Black Panther 2. Like, I feel like it's just cursed almost because, I mean, first of all, you lose Chadwick Boseman and, you know, it was Black Panther and you don't have him anymore. So now you have to find a replacement. And obviously they're not replacing Chadwick Boseman himself, but you do have to find another story for Black Panther 2. And a lot of people were thinking Shuri's the obvious candidate.
And Shuri did in the comics.
So
she became Black Panther.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and it just hurt that all of that is kind of going through. This is what's happening with this movie. I don't know what to say because I don't know all of the facts. I like Tim, you were saying that a lot of it is speculation that, you know, she might not be vaccinated. She might not. We don't know if she's going to get vaccinated, if she's just waiting. She might just be one of those people who are like, you know what, I'd like to wait and see and then get vaccinated later on at a later point in time, which is totally fair, totally valid for people to do so. Or is she straight up like, I don't want to ever get a like is completely anti-vax? Like we don't know. We don't know any of that kind of stuff. And I don't want to assume anything or say anything about her because I don't have all the information. So I'm just going to wait to see once I find out what the information is or what her stance is, then I can make a better comment on it. At this point in time, I'm just going to wait and see. I really hope she's not one of those people who is straight up like anti-vax kind of thing. Yeah. I hope it's just a case of I'm waiting to see and then we'll go from there. Because it would be really sad if we don't get to have Shuri in the MCU is Marvel going to pull one of those, you know, replace her like they did with Bruce Banner or like they did with Rhodey? Are they just going to be like, oops, here's a new actor or actress and you don't know that it's a different person? You know, are they going to do one of those kind of things? And until I have more information, I can't confirm that that's a good idea, bad idea, or whatever. I'm just going to wait to see. That's really my stance. I'm just going to wait to see before I make any assumptions.
I think there seem to be a few different aspects affected here. So we've got the story content, we've got the business side of things, and then we've got for Letitia, right? We've got the personal side of things like her as an individual. So working backwards from that, I have seen so much disinformation to such a ludicrous, literally unbelievable scale that for a long time, I kind of felt like there's no excuse for people being confused about the science behind it. There's no excuse for people not to, if this happened 10 years ago, we wouldn't have all this confusion and stuff. People, there's an epidemic. We have to do things. Okay. And you would just do it because it's something that I took as common sense. But there has been so much proactive movements of disinformation that I can't even fault the average person anymore for being a little bit confused about what to believe and what's not. Like to me, it's very clear, but like I get it. It's been so prolific and so just it's been a bombardment of misinformation. So I feel like when it comes to individuals, I'm a little bit more patient than I am with larger groups when it comes to, maybe you have the wool pulled over your eyes on some things. If you are the type of person who it seems like you're trying to do what you believe to be the right thing, then I'm willing to, just say, maybe there's a misunderstanding, whatever. So if I have a different opinion from Letitia Wright on the personal choices she's making, that's my opinion. And I don't want to diss her. I don't dislike her. I have no hatred for her. I hope that she's safe and that she's healthy and that she continues to be.
Yeah.
So I think we need to, there's enough hatred going on, regardless from which side. Like, let's just move past that and get to a point where we can come back into the room, maybe social distanced, and talk again. We need to get to that point as a culture. So that's my take on her.
Yeah.
The production currently for Black Panther. I don't know if you guys, Tim, I know you've seen Army of the Dead from Netflix recently. Sheba, I don't know if you saw it. Zack Snyder movie. They break into Las Vegas to do a heist during a zombie outbreak. One of the actors in the movie was kicked out of the movie due to a lot of accusations of mistreatment of women and a bunch of other things. So they brought in an actress to take his spot, Tig Notaro. And she's right there with the group of people as they're moving through rooms, as they're sweeping zombies. She's having dialogue with people. She never met a single one of those people. The movie was filmed. They had to go and film her and change the lighting and insert her into all of those shots. If they wanted to, I can't see what, and yeah, it's still Zack Snyder and it's still Netflix, but they don't have the budget that Marvel has. I have to imagine they could still go in and shoot her in those scenes by herself and then insert her into whatever, I assume, handful of scenes are left. I have to think that if they really wanted to, that's a thing that they could do.
They could always do stuff at Pinewood, and I just throw that out there because they are the largest productions, one of the largest production studios in the world.
And
they're
if Zack
certainly the largest in the UK. And then just
he
kind
can
of
pull it off in such a way
together,
that even after
like
I
you said,
tell
Eric.
you this, you go back and watch the movie and say, no, I think Eric's making that up because they did it so well. Marvel can certainly do that with their resources. So there's that. Now moving forward too, we do have a bit of a dilemma because when Chadwick passed on, it was story-wise. I want to be very clear. I'm talking only story here, not about the real world tragedy of what happened. But it worked out content-wise because in the comics, Shuri does take over as the Black Panther. And so I hate to use the word convenient because there's nothing about any of this that in the real world is convenient at all. But in the context of the story, we don't have to worry about trying to recast and what do we do and stuff like that. She probably would have been migrated into that character at some point anyway, kind of like how we now see Kate Bishop becoming Hawkeye of sorts. So that's okay. But now if she's going to leave.
And we expect that
it would have been
the story sort of Black Panther 2.
So,
and may very well still be, but again, if Letitia Wright is cutting out early,
Black Panther, will
maybe
she
not. We don't know.
Will where are they going to go with that story? And it does bring into question: do you recast? Because we've done it before. We did it with the Hulk. We did it with Rhodey. Two pretty prominent characters, and yeah, it was done very early on, but it was still done. Recasting Chadwick Boseman would leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. Recasting Shuri, while not ideal, and I don't want to see them do it, they could do it if they have to. I think that would make more sense than trying to find a different character to become Black Panther. I would say keep that character and recast her if you have to. And I hope it doesn't come to that.
Now we do have in the chat here, David, and then also Frank and Joe have chimed in on it as well. The suggestion that Nakia, who was T'Challa's girlfriend in the first Black Panther movie, played by Lupita Nyong'o, that maybe she would make a good Black Panther. Kind of steer the storyline toward her instead of Shuri. Now, I still think that Shuri still had sort of a central part as basically the scientist, the chief scientist and engineer of Wakanda. That that's still a big thing, but they can also put a different character in there, even without recasting her. Basically, they can address it in writing or not, but simply put a different person in there in that role, and that's that. And I mean, hey, they could say that she decided to run the education center in LA, which is what T'Challa wanted her to do.
And they were planning on introducing Riri in Black Panther 2 anyways. So, I mean, that is another genius that can be put into that spot if need be, if they're looking to move it towards that direction. I am personally a huge fan of Lupita Nyong'o. I've loved her since 12 Years a Slave. And I think she's not only just a phenomenal actress, she's just gorgeous. And I would love to see her more in the Marvel universe. And if she gets to be Black Panther, that is super exciting. Like, I would love to see her in that role. I know it's different than the comics, but I mean, listen, changing all of Miss Marvel. So, I mean, at this point, I'm just like, I do what you got to do kind of thing. Like, I'm trying not to get too upset by it, because if I do, then I start getting annoyed. So I'm just gonna.
What's the name of the actress?
Let it be.
From The Walking Dead.
Do what you got to do, kind of thing.
Who was also in Winter Soldier? Yes. I'd be okay seeing her move into the role too.
I love her.
She's a great actress. She's got the physicality to pull off the stunts.
I would love her.
Yeah.
She already plays Okoye, so
Yeah.
Right.
She's well prepared.
It's not a huge stretch. They can do some, take some literary license and make something happen.
Exactly.
And Sheba, you mentioned Riri, and it kind of got me thinking a little bit, like for a split second, that, you know what, they could maybe change the origin story of Riri and make her Wakandan, and because she is this genius and all that.
Yeah.
But then I also then had this other thought in my head of, don't do that, because then basically they're like fundamentally going in the direction of all Black people come from Wakanda in the MCU.
Exactly.
No, we don't want that either.
Exactly.
So it's like I while it could be a good new origin story for her, I also just don't want to go down this dangerous path.
No, of, I mean, I was just thinking that
all the Black people come from.
Exactly.
No, I don't like that.
Like, it could just be that she was there, like maybe she went to visit, or she was there in an outreach program or something like that, and happened to be, in the lab, and then was like, oh, look at this lab. This is like that kind of a connection. Yes. But I 100% agree with you, because I mean, we don't want people to think, because there's always going to be that one person who's like, well, all Black people come from one place. You're like, no, that's not what it is. And that's not what it should be in the comics, because that's not what our society is like. And like Stan Lee would always say, that the comics are supposed to reflect our life, our society, and what we see in the world now. So,
and Black Panther,
that would just
as far as
the
story continuity, has always been about family lineage and such. And if they had to break that, I would think that they would try to like come up with a darn good reason for it. Like if they're going to have Denai's character or Lupita's character or something like that, like at least that's close.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think this is one of those situations where somebody just stumbles into the Batcave and becomes the new Batman. Like,
yeah.
You really need there to be that connection to that lineage somehow. And if it's not a direct connection, it needs to at least be a very strong tangential connection.
Yeah.
Right. So let's see our last news item that we have here. So obviously with the announcement that Amy Pascal made of, hey, we're going to do another Spider-Man movie, and we've already been working with Marvel Studios and Tom Holland on that movie. Like, obviously that's great news. We talked about that last week. So Tom Holland had an interview with the Hollywood Reporter. Presumably this was basically part of a No Way Home presser type of thing. And Tom Holland said he presently does not have a contract for 3 more Spider-Man films. He didn't say if he has a contract for 1 or 2 more. He said, I don't have a contract for 3 more. He said that an understanding exists, which we kind of know, between the two studios, that being Marvel Studios and Sony, that should Marvel want Tom Holland to appear in one of their movies, then that door is already open to a conversation. And we know that that conversation takes place between Amy Pascal and Kevin Feige. Now, Kevin Feige has said in the past that Marvel Studios is no longer going to be signing any multi-film contracts with any of the talent, because on one side, while it's very convenient for them to do so, on the other hand, I think they want to maintain that flexibility of, you know what, we signed Sheba to a 4-film contract, but we decide, well, 3 films really told that story. Now we got to figure out something to put her in, or we have to, make a default payment for not having her in a movie, or we want to have her in one more and we have to go back to negotiations, and that's a pain, whatever. I don't know. So going film to film does, I think, make some things easier in some ways. That said, Marvel Studios never had a contract with Tom Holland because he was contracted through Sony.
Right.
So there's that situation. So what we expect, certainly what I expect here, and I mentioned this before, that I think we're really only going to see Tom Holland in, I'm calling it Spider-Man 4. I don't think we're going to see him past that, even though there's supposed to be this trilogy, and I firmly believe there will be.
Yeah.
I think that's where we stand. I think Spider-Man 4 is going to be the passing of a torch to another Spider-Man. And Sheba, you and I talked about this before, that it's a great opportunity to introduce a Miles Morales or another version of Spider-Man and have that happen.
Especially since,
go ahead.
I mean, they already kind of introduced Aaron in Homecoming. He was there. He was like, oh yeah, I have a nephew about your age, and was literally like, that's Miles's uncle. So we had a little bit of that connection there. So I just assume that this is the universe he's in, where Miles does exist, and Miles will take up the mantle at some point. So I wouldn't be surprised that that's something that they're gonna do. On top of that, I kind of also feel like this thing that Tom Holland is talking about is also important, because the No Way Home is coming out. If he was like, yeah, I'm scheduled to do more movies, everyone's like, well, Tom Holland survives, so there's no like threat in watching No Way Home. You'd be like, he's gonna survive anyway, so who cares, kind of thing. So part of me is like, maybe they're also like, no, he's not gonna, we don't know yet, because they're also kind of trying to double down with that. It's kind of like the whole thing they did with Loki and Tom Hiddleston being like, no, there's no Loki season 2, and then at the end they're like, Loki season 2, or like, we all knew that. You're just covering your tracks now. So I don't know if it's that kind of like, it's a mixture of all of those things. Part of it's like, we don't know because we don't want to ruin Spider-Man 4, or you'd have expectations that he's going to survive, because then it
I'm a little grateful for this rumor, actually, because it does.
So
for those
part
of us
of it,
who keep up with the stuff behind the scenes, there is legitimately a question about whether or not Tom Holland's Peter Parker is, the title of the movie is No Way Home. And they're dealing with multiverse stuff. Does he get trapped in another multiverse and have ... no way home? Or, and so this question now about the contracts and stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you said, Sheba, if he said, yeah, I'm on for 3 more movies. Oh, well, of course he gets home then. And now we don't know. And so I'm a little grateful that this discussion is being had now prior to the movie, because I legitimately, for one of the first times in a really long time, don't know if he's going to come out of the movie intact. Which is kind of exciting.
Right.
Like, it's kind of a cliffhanger. It raises the stakes.
Yeah. And like, I feel like this is the kind of situation we had with, what was it? When we were watching Endgame, because a lot of the contracts for the main, MCU characters that we knew of, their contracts were ending. So a lot of people were like, oh, are they coming back? Who's going to die? Who's going to survive? What's going on? So I kind of feel like we're going into this movie with that kind of same question, like, is he going to survive? Who's going to survive? What's going to happen? So I agree. It's building up hype for the movie.
Yeah, I agree. All right, folks. So that is going to do it for this episode 208. Please do. So folks who are with us in the live stream, we're just going to do a quick reset, and we'll be back on with episode 209, because every week we do usually record 2 episodes back to back of Guardians of the MCU. We release one earlier in the week, one later in the week. That second episode is very oftentimes what we call a character profile, in case you happen to be listening for the first time. And that character profile is going to be on Kingpin. So again, in live stream, hang out for a few minutes. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you're going to have to wait for a couple more days. And then we will be giving you that episode 209. So
thanks for having me.